Perfect. Welcome back to another episode of the Outcast Podcast, my friends. It's me, your lovely host, Jake, and today, Hades isn't with me, unfortunately. He's off in La La Land playing Loverboy. He's gonna be mad at me when he hears that clip, but I'm gonna say what I want. But today, I am joined by an individual who I've been trying to get on the show for about 2 years now. Since the very inception of the show. We're 21 episodes deep. This is episode 22, so it's taken forever. I've always wanted an opinion on a lot of things, so I'm glad that we're finally here in this room. I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Finally. All right. I go by Tim. Nowadays, I used to say Timmy J, but I'll leave that for the gamer tags and strictly just Tim. Tim is fine. Learning to mature, I guess, in different ways. You learn that the antics and the extras are not needed all the time, so I only use them when they're needed. So for now, it's just Tim, and yeah. As my boy Jake said before, I have been waiting to get on this show for quite a while now. Damn, 2 years. It really has been 2 years.
It has been 2 years. What you just said about gamer tags, man, that's part of the reason I started introducing myself as just Jake. It ain't Virgo Jake anymore. I realized, man, part of maturing, gotta let that go. Let that go a little bit.
Yeah, that is true.
Now, we've always wanted to connect on the show because we have a cross-section, right? We have a cross-section between us, and we're interested in a lot of the same things, but something that we both value, video games. Video games.
Right.
For those of you that don't know, my friend Tim here, he is a streamer. He's getting there. He's very close to getting monetized, so we're going to, you know what I'm saying? We're trying our hardest, each one of us, to push our own ambitions. He's been one of the few people to support the show since its inception. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm trying my hardest to support him streaming as well. Gonna have to drop his link in the description, so that's gonna be hilarious.
Most definitely, yeah, for sure.
And conversations around gaming are interesting, as I realize that right now in 2024, we are in a spectacularly odd time, right? When we're talking about a certain age for video games, right? Because obviously you and I, we grew up in like the age of physical hard copy gaming. We grew up in the age of you would have to see the commercial or you'd have to read these game magazines, which by the way, old school gaming mags.
Top tier still, to this day.
Let's not even get into that because that's a whole next thing. I can only recall the amount of times that it just never mind. I'm getting off track. Yes. But you grew up in the times of you physically had to go purchase the game. Hell, even trying to explain to your parents that you wanted the hardware, getting a console was something, very hard to even convince people of, right?
Yeah, it was tough.
Now we live in the era of cross-platform gaming. We live in the era of everything not only being optimized but digitalized, and it's cool to a certain aspect. But personally, I gotta ask firstly, how do you feel? Because you've been one to tell me about the Xbox Game Pass and explain to me about gaining everything for a subscription-based fee and stuff like that. How do you really feel about the gaming sphere just becoming fully digital going forward? Because we're at the point where some companies are just straight up refusing to print hard copies of games now.
It's quite interesting, and I say interesting because as you know, the era that we grew up in, where everything was on a disc or a gaming cartridge, and man, if you drop that cartridge too hard, like you were in tears, you were in shambles, and then oh my gosh, and then we got to eras where we started to see like the Sony PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, and CDs became a thing, and then
scratching them became the problem.
Oh my gosh, if you had a CD
if you scratched a CD, or if to those of you that even remember, if you scratched a CD or if you dropped a cartridge too hard and you saw a pin move, you were then stuck being a teenager trying to work quantum physics. You were turning into a black magician trying to make sure it worked.
I cannot tell you the amount of times I have burned through and just emptied bottles upon bottles of rubbing alcohol, trying to get the scratches to come out of CDs, especially when we had GTA San Andreas at the time.
Oh boy!
And for games like that to have a scratch on the CD,
it was just about gamer side.
It was as if life as you knew it was just over. But I think for me personally, I'm really glad to see the direction that we're heading in where games are concerned, because personally, I encourage all my other friends, gamers, it's nice to have the option. Like, let's say, for example, you're going for a console. It's nice to have the option of, if you want to have a disc, you can have a disc, because the way that I look at CDs in this day and age, they're strictly just collector's items now. Something that you have, and you just have it and you put it up on a bookshelf.
It'll be on a wall, and you'll have them all color coded and such.
Look at it, and it's like a
badge of honor just to have it.
Right, just as the older people for us would say, they have their your ornaments. Yeah. I believe that CDs for us as gamers they're coming to a stage where they're going to become ornaments.
Yeah, they're just trophies.
Have on, trophies that we just have on our bookshelves or tabletops or wherever in our gaming rooms. But I love the idea of a digital game. Why do I say I love the idea? Because I'm going to share a little bit of a backstory. I play mostly on PC, so I have a Steam account, right? And I remember I created that Steam account nearly 7-8 years ago, and the games that I purchased on that Steam account, it doesn't matter if I change my computer 5, 6, and I have changed my computer a total about 5 times, and all it requires, my login information, a password, and immediately, once I'm signed in, I have access to hundreds of games dating as far back as when I first made the account and I made my first digital purchase. So I think I'm in love with the idea of games going to a stage where they're just digital now. And I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all behind it. I am 100% in supporting of it. I'm supportive of it. I love the idea. I love what's happening behind it. I'm all for it.
What I did, because I do like when we're talking about positives of the digital age, I do remember when Steam really started to pop off. I remember being 11 years old and seeing games that just had this property outside of just being physical. It meant a lot to me. And obviously digital gaming and the finances that come with it offered a lot for gamers, like Humble Bundles.
Yeah, most definitely.
Humble Bundles.
I remember those people for sure. Humble Bundle.
You would get what, 5, 6, 7, 8 games.
People would not
for like the price of one.
People would not believe me when I told them that, listen, I got a quarter of my Steam library currently is from Humble Bundle.
Yeah.
It's from Humble Bundle.
Yeah, it's OG shit.
I mean, to this day, I think the last time I've been on the website, they upped their price to, I think it's about $19.99 US. But when I was looking at the collection of what they were still offering, it was still so much, and it was just, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Seeing Humble Bundles alone always had me wondering about the economics of such a thing. Like, how can anybody afford this? But you know something? I sort of let it be. I sort of let it be.
Yeah. There are some questions that you don't ask. You just grow and learn to appreciate what it is.
When it comes to like the digital sphere of gaming, man, it's always surprised me, because then we have gaming phenomenons like Minecraft or let's say Terraria. Forget about Terraria. Brawlhalla.
Most definitely.
Games that not only came out but thrived on that on the reason they blew up so greatly was because they were digitally accessed and they were easily able to be played consistently over time, despite the fact that Brawlhalla and their updates, for whatever reason, are going into the terabytes.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're putting on there, if it's Bodvar's hitbox on that damn hammer, but
I don't know, man.
we're gonna pretend like it makes sense.
Right.
Right? But in terms of like that digital aspect and the way that he was capable of getting towards people, it was spectacular. But
Definitely.
I've witnessed some disadvantages with the idea of it.
Yes.
The disadvantages being, I don't even remember where I saw it.
I mean,
but it was recently.
I can think of one right off the bat. Huge disadvantage of digital games as opposed to physical copies. With a digital copy of a game, its base value never deteriorates. No matter how many years go by, no matter how many time has passed, doesn't matter. Let me give an example. The Xbox. Now, I have an Xbox One on the side. And I remember the other day, I was saying, man, look, somebody got me a gift card and say, okay, let me redeem this. I really want to have a digital copy of Call of Duty Black Ops 2 because that's by far one of my most favorite Call of Duty games, Black Ops 2.
Yeah.
I'm in love with the zombies. I know the maps like the back of my hand. I know where to find
Black Ops
everything.
2
Man.
Xbox Live Lobby.
The bus. I'm all for that game.
That Xbox Live Lobby.
All for the game. Right.
We all recall the bad days.
Right.
I also, man, the kids these days, I'm sorry, tangent, but kids these days are soft, bro. I've heard kids these days be soft, but you don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to be in an Xbox Live lobby and have a guy tell your dad should have aborted you, dog.
They're wusses.
Like the things you would say to some dudes. I once heard a guy say, man, I bet your uncle molested you, and I bet you liked it.
Listen.
Kids these days can't handle that.
They're soft. They can't handle
yeah, I'm sorry. I got way off of that.
They get called trash and immediately run for the report button.
Like, come on, man.
Kids. They don't know what it was. Call of Duty lobbies back in the days were brutal. Those were the type of lobbies that determined whether you were going to be a wuss for the rest of your life or you were actually going to learn how to stand up for yourself and be somebody.
If you were going to be all right.
Those lobbies would determine the kind of man or girl that you would grow up to become.
Hey, shout out to any girl that could have sat in one of them lobbies and played. My type of woman. Now, when we're talking about those disadvantages again, the base file,
right?
Definitely something.
As I was saying, the base value of a digital copy of a game, it never ever deteriorates. It doesn't matter how many years that game has been available on the store. Base value is still always the same. Call of Duty Black Ops 2, as I mentioned before. Would you believe me if I told you the price for it online for a digital copy of the game, it's still $49.99 US dollars?
I would believe you because I've seen physical copies of DS games nowadays are going for $200.
Yes.
When they used to be sold for $40.
Right. My point exactly. So it does have its disadvantages.
Absolutely.
But one of the things, as I've learned, I found myself becoming something of a huntsman for deals. And aside from the fact that we have services like Humble Bundle, shout out to them. What I've also learned is what these store owners will do, what these content owners will do, they'll watch and see how much the sales for a game is going over a 6-month period. And more than likely, you can expect that item to be on sale shortly after that. So, let's say, for example, the Game Pass. I tell all my friends, listen, man, if you get an Xbox, you're doing well. If you get the Game Pass, it's not going to be a bad thing. I mean, at first thought, everybody might be like, why the hell would I want to spend money monthly just to have access to some games? But then I also tell people there are some little quirks that you get with having the Game Pass that a regular person wouldn't be able to have it, as opposed to someone who has the Game Pass. Let's say, for example, if I have the Game Pass, that same copy of Call of Duty Black Ops 2, I get it at a discounted rate, anywhere between 25 to 50% off sometimes, just because I have that Game Pass. As opposed to a regular person, that price is going to be the same price all year round until the content owners decide to have a sale. But sometimes what happens is some games they kind of get bundled up together, and when they get bundled up together, sometimes I believe the store owners don't even know what games are going on sale.
I generally don't. I believe so, because there's no way I'm seeing a $40 game.
Sometimes we're looking at the
go in a bundle for
sale.
$20.
I mean, for example, I know most of these markets, they're about to have a big summer blowout sale.
Yes, they will.
And I promise you, we are going to see maybe about 10 to 20 of the A-list titles, and then the rest of the titles to make up that 100 games that have been put on sale for the summer, we're going to be garbage. And we're going to be looking at it like, why are you giving me 85% off on, let's say, for example, Hollow Knight? Not a bad game, by the way.
Yeah, no hate to the guys who still rock Hollow Knight.
I love that game. But I'm just giving an example. A game with the graphics settings of Hollow Knight, a side scroller, if you will. We will see maybe about 20 different side scroller games, even some indie games there with some crazy deals, 85% off, 90% off.
Shout out to that Shovel Knight. That Shovel Knight discount at the time.
But then when we get to the A-list titles, we're going to see maybe just about 10 of them on sale for about 20% off, 25, 40. Hell, some might even be 50% off. And, that alone points to the fact that a lot of these store owners, these marketers, they don't really pay full attention to what they're putting on sale. They really just group stuff together and just be like, hey, here's a sale. People are going to spend regardless.
I've contended in my own mind that the fact that they don't pay attention, I've always had the belief that anybody at the head of like an organization, anybody at the head of something that's making a shitload of money, right? If you're not paying attention to something, that means that your intentions are elsewhere. So when I start wondering about the economics of this, I start to think, what do they stand to gain for making this so viable?
Right.
To like anybody. And the only thing I ever saw to be stand to gain, I think that's also a lot of people's thing when it comes to like the fact that people want us to become a cashless society now, is control. I don't know where I had seen it, but recently some dudes got completely locked out of their accounts. And these dudes got locked out by the game developers. Spent money on the game, yada yada yada, gone. Some games are being completely erased and taken away from digital platforms, right? And the dudes who had the physical copies, they're the ones saying, "Ha, this is mine forever." And we even have cases. Holy crap! What was that thing? We even have cases, right, where especially it's been going up recently in like the game development community, where developers seem to just not be caring about gamers anymore, and it's hurting me. And I'm thinking it is this push forward into this data stream lifestyle and this data stream future in gaming that's allowing them to say this. Because I will never be happy hearing somebody who's supposed to be developing a game and you're running the whole thing saying, man, if you don't like it, just don't buy it. And it's like, why would you say that to the niggas who put money in your pocket?
Crazy.
Why would you say that to anybody that puts money in your pockets? Especially the dudes that will be out here buying early releases, pre-ordering.
Exactly, my guy.
It's also part of why I told dudes, especially on digital, because I never used to do it for physical copies, but I seriously don't do it for digital. For the love of God, don't pre-order nothing. These dudes are gonna send you a half-baked game where they have to put through bloody patches within the first 2 weeks, and you paid for this months ago.
All right.
These dudes aren't done, but they're just doing whatever they feel like. I can only imagine the amount of dudes that pre-ordered Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, and now are kicking themselves because the game itself has been such a wonky mess and has done nothing over the couple of seasons that they've already had, especially after adding in the Joker, which, what was even the point of that? That didn't make the game any more dynamic.
Crazy. Yeah.
I've witnessed it, and it really hurts. It really hurts to see this. Like that's a real negative for me when it comes into this conversation about digital, because I can see the good that this could do, but I also see it's giving these individuals such understanding, like they have this concrete feeling of power. That like there's absolutely nothing these dudes can do, yada yada, and it's like no, there is something you can do, and it probably end badly, but they seem not to care, and it pushes forward, especially into remakes, remasters, and re-releases of games. Because take 2020. 2020 happened.
Yeah.
2020 happened. We all remember that. We all remember, right? We're post-COVID now. We're post-COVID.
Right.
And money wasn't flowing the same, especially in the video game industry. So when doing that, you needed funding.
Yep.
Right? A lot of games, they started taking ESG funding.
Yeah.
Now, for those that don't understand what that is, hold on, give me a second. ESG policies focus on diversity and inclusion. And from my perspective, and I'm a very crass individual, so I'm gonna say it. They're just wokeifying games. That's all they're doing. They're just wokeifying games. And for anybody that doesn't even feel that, like, look at Modern Warfare's last release.
Yeah.
Dude, because again, grew up in a certain time. Even if you're getting rid of the lobby with all the cursing and everything, all right? We all remember when you could choose from hundreds of flags to enjoy yourself and to choose your nationality, yada yada yada. These ESG funded games, and we know that they're taking ESG funding. They have been pressured into getting rid of so many flags. They've been pressured into including such things as pride and trans flags, and I really don't give a shit. It's funny how a game based out of America, the only American flag is one that's on fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have banned flags like the Brazilian flag, which I don't understand, and have just gone. They've gone rapid with, and that was just when I first saw that, I was like, I was upset with it, but I was like,
yeah,
what's the worst that could happen?
Most definitely.
Now we get into games like FF7's remake and FF7 Rebirth.
Yeah.
No, for the love of God, no.
Not. But
because what
now
can
you do? It's there.
It's hurting because I'm seeing like what was it, Cosmo Canyon? I think it was Cosmo Canyon, and it was, for those of you that don't know, Cosmo Canyon is this area that is basically based off of like Native American, all this, right? That was cool, and then I guess the ESG officers are in charge of the development of the game said, we worked really hard, really adding in diversity and yada yada yada. That's cool. Tell me why I walk into Cosmo Canyon, first person I see is a fat black woman in Native American territory, and she's a saloon owner. I have questions.
Most definitely.
I don't see any dude, who looks Native American. I just see a bunch of black and white. And then we got into the other piece of the game. I forget what it's even called, but it was this like Mayan temple-esque area. There was nobody that even looks Latino, Mayan, nothing. They're just a bunch of black dudes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know whether to feel upset that they have pressed into this area of these dudes are just throwing black people in there, or I should feel offended that their idea of diversification is just throwing black
people into it. Yeah.
And that's ruining the experience of any game. And they're saying, we made it better, made it more inclusive. Bro, the original game, even in pixels, it was very much more. It was very much
definitely. You'd still
inclusive.
be able to tell the difference. I think one of the things that, it's inevitable.
Mm.
And at this point, it's already happened, and it's just gonna continue to grow, and we're gonna see more and more of it as the years go by. And I mean, for me personally, it's my own personal opinion, I find that to be a somewhat hard pill to swallow, or something that's gonna be hard for me to digest, because one of the things that I'm seeing happening with a lot of these big name studios, the names are slipping me at the moment. Activision,
Hey
a lot
man,
of these other
Ubisoft is
studios,
taking.
Ubisoft,
They're taking
yeah,
boku bucks.
right. But one of the things that I see happening a lot with these studios and these developers is that they have more or less realized that, hey, there is no unity. There's no united front. There's no 80% unity that's happening in the realm of the actual gamers for us consumers. We're not unified enough. So we are not going to say, let's say, for example, Cyberpunk 2077. When Cyberpunk dropped, thing was riddled from head to toe in bugs,
many
glitches, and errors.
And that's what I be talking about with the pre-orders. These dudes, they had to release, 3 patch notices?
Exactly. One right after the other. I was there. But Cyberpunk 2077 dropped, and it was filled with bugs, issues, problems. Another game that happened with as well was Fallout 76.
Yes.
And a lot of people that pre-ordered that game, and I'm speaking from a place of experience because I have Fallout 76, and a lot of us, we could say, bro, what in the absolute hell is this? I spent money pre-ordering this just for me to be here at the launch day, the release date, and have to go through utter garbage. I'm creating my character, and I'm looking at a skeleton instead of having a face. I'm running through the wastelands. I'm getting one-shotted by rad roaches and mole rats. And the bugs were just all over. They were evident in these games.
I recall the outrage. And they see no united front, and they take it and they laugh with it.
Right. And because a lot of them, they're telling themselves that, hey, I mean,
these dudes are still spending money.
Even if we release trash, out of a world of how many billion people, we still know that there's at least gonna be 2 million, 3 million, 30 million even that are still gonna buy it.
And this is why I'm just a bit happy.
I'm one of those, I like to call them goddamn plebs that are just gonna be like, oh, I'll wait until it gets better. I'll wait until it's getting...
Those dudes. It's especially like, no. There was a time of quality in the past.
If I pre-ordered a game and at launch date I get garbage or some half-assed work, man, let me refund it. Let me return it. Let me hold the developers accountable for their shortcomings. And I don't think that we as the consumers do that enough. We don't hold these developers accountable for
in that realm. BS. I'm somewhat glad that in some areas, at least, that there is some manner of recompense, because again, Final Fantasy. This goes for me. I love Final Fantasy. If you guys don't know, man, FF is my whole thing.
Especially 7, man. Listen.
Yes, 7
the
is
original one that had Zack in there.
The OG is something you can't fight, right? And I remember finally when I was like 14, 15, I finally went back, emulated, and played FF1, and I was it was an experience.
Crazy.
It was an experience, right? But when we're talking about FF Remake and Rebirth, which, by the way, that right there was an example of them just being money hungry and not caring. Because how do you make 2 separate releases out of just one game? They stretched everything too far. They stretched it so thin, and it was so annoying. And sure, the FF7 remake sold pretty well. They sold alright pretty well, and then the sales sort of dropped off, and then they were like, Rebirth is coming. When Rebirth released, I am proud to say that they underperformed so much.
Most definitely.
Because dudes were sick of it. I'm so proud
Most definitely.
Because it was so annoying, and they not only stretched the game, they stretched the content, but even upon stretching the game, right? Let's say, fine, you stretch the content in the game because it's an open world. Why would you have an open world that's basically telling you where to go? Why in the world am I mean, Final Fantasy. I have this is something I dreamed about as a child. Why in the world do I see yellow paint telling me to climb there? Should I not be figuring things out? Like, please? It ruined the game experience for so many people. And
yeah, it did. Most definitely did. I know for me, for one, it was crazy. It was imagine waiting for because with all the original Final Fantasy titles, it was always turn-based, and we loved that, fell in love with it.
Yeah.
But then somewhere along the line, they decided, okay, you know what? In order for us to grow our player base, get it back to where it once was. In the millions, probably the billions. What we're gonna do for Final Fantasy 15 is we're gonna change the playstyle, so it's no longer gonna be turn-based. It's gonna be open world.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be.
Excuse me, guys. I seem to be getting a call. Yes, back to that. What were we talking about? I lost track.
So I remember I was saying, so one of the things that they decided to do is, okay, so we're going to change it from being turn-based, and now we're going to have it that it's open world, and it has a bit of a hack and slash element to it, so it's became more of like an action RPG type of thing. And I mean, to be honest, personally, I didn't mind it at all.
No, I didn't.
I didn't mind it.
It brought something so nice and innovation. It brought innovation to the series.
Where it most definitely did. But then where it started to get sour for me was when I started to realize just how much my character was being nudged and pushed in every single direction throughout the game.
Yeah.
Of course, we got quests and there are side quests, yes. But
shout out to side quests.
After you complete the side quests are literally almost about, for me, they're almost about the same three things, and it's either hunting, collecting,
it's a bunch of collecting,
hacking / kill this amount of this, and then
that's it. There seems to be no love in side quests.
And you figure out the story, and then you realize, hey, drive to this place, and then I love what they did. I laughed when I saw this. They were like, okay, drive to this place. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll drive to this place. I got a nice cool car in front of me. It's a nice looking ride. Let me hop in, let me drive. You hop inside the car, and the only option that you have, if you select to manually control the car, the only option that you have to drive that car is literally pressing the gas button.
That's
or the
it.
brake. That's it. That's all you have.
No, that hurts me because
you have to hold down one button for 30 plus minutes and just sit there listening to the side dialogue by these NPCs and just be there like, okay,
oh man, so many roads out there.
This is exciting. Just holding down that one button.
It's annoying exciting in a way that we have now reached a point where, and I think this goes along with like the law of diminishing returns. Eventually, when you get to a point, things drop off. This hurts me because we're at the point where we have more technology, more access to spectacular game engines created to do great things, right? And for whatever reason, there's less love being put into these games than 10, 15, 20 years ago. To give an example, The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. Top 5 Zelda games of all time. Don't quote me. Don't at me. Don't fight me. I'm fighting everybody because the Minish Cap is OG.
Most definitely. For
the GBA. That's
where
some
this really
OG
started.
Shit. Right? The game itself, I recall it being so difficult. It was so difficult for me as a kid because as a kid, you just used to just running in a direction painted at you.
Know something
You're not told
funny?
To do anything, right?
You want to know something funny?
So,
before I gained all this, tech knowledge that I now have, and before I learned that what enables these cartridges to save your progress is a little damn coin battery that's placed on the inside of the cartridge connected to the circuit, and that's what helps you to save your games. I had no idea. And when I got my copy of Zelda the Minish Cap, when it finally hit our little island here and I got my hands on one,
Finally, by the
can
way.
you imagine that I had no idea that the battery inside that thing was bad? So that means I couldn't save my progress. So imagine me for 4 days straight trying to keep my Game Boy alive. I'm trying to keep it on. I'm praying that the batteries don't die. I begged my mom, like, Mom, please buy me the Duracell batteries, because those were, back in the days, if you were using Duracell, anything.
It is not like
Mom,
back in the day.
Duracell, please.
Anybody who knows, back in the day, Duracell was the thing. It's not like today where they feel like they're running on ether, but back then they're running on pure gas. They're running on pure gas. It was OG.
It's crazy. Nowadays, I remember the other day, I popped a pair of Duracell batteries into one of my Xbox controllers, and I kid you not, in about 4 days' time, they were dead. They were dead. And strangely enough, it was Radio Shack batteries that I put in my controller.
Listen,
they were still going. Shout out to Radio Shack, by the way. They were still going.
I'm upset with Radio Shack in some ways, personally, because I understand. I've met some people that have worked at Radio Shacks, right? And these individuals have told me, dude, one of the worst things to work at Radio Shack is that some of the people who run them, the managers, they're unethical as shit. Some dudes will know that they have bad tech and just rebox it when somebody brings it back. I personally, especially in Antigua, I lost faith in Radio Shack. And that's really coming from me, because I used to have so much faith in them, but then it got to a point where everything I bought was just not durable, and it hurt me. So, that's my own little tangent about Radio Shack. I'm sorry, we got way off track. But my original point was, man, when it came to the Minish Cap, I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I was running in circles. I was up, down.
Figure it out.
I had to figure it out.
You had to talk to every soul that you met, every NPC.
When I figured out I could do a roll, when I figured out that the hat could help me fly, when I remember first clicking the button that allowed the hat dude to talk to me, and I was like, holy crap, he can talk. That was an experience, and not just being a child. I've experienced that in the modern day with some very well-designed games. But I'm saying back then, they not only put so much love into it, like just the main game, but the side quests also. Every side quest completely unique. We're not just talking, go grab this or go do that. No. We're talking full-on side quests, completely unique. They had the love in them, and you could feel the love. I can still feel the love. Some Kid Cudi type shit. So now we have even more powerful game engines and so much greater hardware, and for whatever reason, it's upsetting. It's upsetting to me. And it's upsetting to me that now we have such greater technology, and they're just not using it. And then they're saying, if you don't like it, just don't buy it. And I'm glad that the dudes just didn't buy Rebirth, because as a man who loves Final Fantasy VII, and I will show love for the Final Fantasy series, I will always tell people FF1 is goated above all else, and people be like, bro, but FF7, and I'm like, listen to me. I get you.
I think FF7 is really close second.
I get you, but I get you. You're in love and you like the character, but no, FF1. 4 heroes, they clutch the crystals. The first time you fought Galand, the first boss.
Most definitely.
Don't tell me it wasn't goated. This game is goated. The remake for the GBA, goated. I want them to craft some cooler shit for me. That's what I want personally. So, in terms of that.
Another game that I've noticed that
genuinely
they've allowed to just
that's her crap
dwindle away is
screw it. Either way, I guess we're gonna have to cut this short. That's gonna hurt.
Another game that I realized they've allowed to dwindle away was the Metal Gear series. Can you imagine, man? Like going from the 1998 title, and then we got to PlayStation 1, and we had Metal Gear Solid 1. It was the first time that we had 3D, and everybody was going crazy over it. And then I'm trying to tell them, you could just.
Now we're back.
All right.
That took a while. gentlemen, that took a while.
Lost my train of thought.
I very much did too.
The last thing I was mentioning was that one of the games that I also realized that they did it to was the Metal Gear series.
Yes.
I mean, I remember for me first experiencing Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PlayStation. It was crazy, being able to run around at the top and then like just the way that the camera was angled, and then if you pressed R1, it would go into first person mode. You'd be able to aim your weapon and shoot, and it was wow. And then all of that, experiencing that for the first time, and then being able to live through that story, like you felt like you were there. You felt like you were a part of everything from the beginning to the conspiracies that just plagued the entire Metal Gear series.
I recall Metal Gear 5 having a messed up story.
I was so lost. I kid you not. To this
Zach
day, I was lost.
Ever.
In terms of
trying
what was happening.
Him, bro. He was trying to convince him that he wasn't better than anyone, and then he said, "Yeah, you're right. I'm not better than anyone. I'm gonna go back to being a murderer." And then, nice young lady. Not joint chat. But not getting that on record. Anyway,
Right.
Bloody. He was convincing him, yes, I'm better than you, and then he says, "You're right. I'm no better than you. I like to kill people, yada yada yada.
Right.
You know what's the right thing to do? You know what I like to do most? Kill the weak. And you know who's real weak? People who exert power over others. So I'm gonna kill you anyway." So imagine, the villain caught himself in a catch-22 when he made the hero realize, man, he's gonna kill me worse.
Most definitely.
It's hilarious like that.
And now I think the latest installment in the series was Metal Gear Survive, and for me that was just it's bad. There's no nice way for me to put that. It's bad. It's bad, and I didn't enjoy it. But I think it's becoming more and more, or a lot of us as consumers for games, we're starting to understand that, man, look, these developers, they don't get one rat's ass about us. They don't give a shit about us. They don't care whether or not we love their game. They don't care enough to put in months and months and time and effort into creating an awesome story. And another thing for me, it's like most of the times they're now more so focusing more on the multiplayer content than actually focusing on
The main
single player experiences. And it speaks volumes because, man, I'm being honest, and I'm not saying that they're not good titles out there, they are. It's just that the last good one that I got my hands on was, I think, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and then after that one, they brought out, I think it was a remake or a remaster of Ghost of Tsushima, and then
anybody that knows anything about Ghost of Tsushima, man.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima was like it's like another level.
So
Dark Souls,
goated.
Man, it's crazy.
It's so goated.
It was good. I still have the original one. Still play it to this day every now and again when I get bored. I think one game that I know for sure they were just unable to tamper with over the years was the name is
It's just not getting to you.
Nah, the name's not getting to me.
Man, I believe we ruined our trains of thought. I'll take the blame for that one. Got ambushed.
It's all good.
Man, but tell me, with all of these things that we just stated, everything we just talked about, realistically, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the problems that we've seen, and exactly the problems that I have, man, how does the future of gaming really look for you, man? Because these game developers, again, they're really not caring about. A lot of them are just not caring about the consumer. They're not concerned about the product that they're pushing out. But
to me, it looks like how do I put it? Have you ever seen? You remember? Well, I know for sure you'd remember. Do you remember Two-Face from Batman?
yeah,
if I could sum that up in a person, or if I could give the future of games a characteristic, it would be Two-Face.
Shit.
Because it's gonna be good and it's gonna be bad. I know we mentioned earlier about the future of games heading more so towards a digital era, and of course that's good. That has its goods, but it also has its bads. And I think a lot of other gamers, much less like I was wondering about at some point, wondering about whether or not these developers in these markets are pushing us, the consumers, towards not actually owning the games that we're paying for digitally. And I mean, I know a lot of my other friends that have that worry. I know this one guy, he's 100% convinced that at some point later on in the future, that's what it is. We're basically, with things like the Game Pass and, Xbox capitalized on the Game Pass and what they were doing, and then Sony decided, hey, you actually got something good going for you. Let me follow suit. And Sony did it now with the PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
There's different. They changed it up, so it's no longer just one fee that you pay. There's different types. There's essential, premium, basic, and of course you get different features with whatever plan that you have.
Yep.
But I say that to say, I do think it's something that we'd have to, as consumers, pay attention to, in terms of like when you purchase a game, like. Right now, as it stands, when you purchase a game digitally, you actually, honestly, the only thing you're actually spending money for. So like, the only thing you're actually spending that $59.99 for, it's not the game itself, it's not the files, it's literally the license for the game. It's literally the licenses to say that, hey, I paid money, so I'm therefore allowed to have a copy of this game downloaded to my console. And I think it can be a good thing because, as I said, it's something that you can have stockpiled, and then it's also something that we do have to be vigilant about and watch out that these companies don't decide to go AWOL with it. A lot of the copies of games that we have, the base version might cost $50. And if you keep looking, you'll see another version there for $99. And the only difference between the $50 and the $99 is that the one for $99 just has some skins in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's another thing, but for us to get into that, we really wouldn't have the time tonight, because that's an entire conversation for a whole other
man. It is, and I'm sad that we don't have more time, but man, this has been an amazing podcast episode. This has been what I wanted it to be. I'm happy that we finally got to make this connection. We finally got to have this on record.
Most definitely. After 2 years.
2 whole years. Between that time, you got married and moved on. Yo, man, life actually happened within 2 years of this dang show.
Most definitely.
Thanks so much for even being on the show. Guys, you already know it's Tim. You're going to have to check him out. I'm going to be dropping all of his information in the description. Please go look into him, man. He's spectacular entertainment. Anything else you want to say before we head off?
Shout out to you. Thanks once again for having me here on the show. I can't tell you how long I've been waiting for this, but I believe that this is the first of many future appearances, and I'm really glad and excited. Honestly, I couldn't even put into words how really proud I am that you decided to stick to it, keep it going despite whatever challenges you were facing. It's really good. It's really good. Really glad for it. And as I always say, I believe in this podcast, and I'm here for it every step of the way. So shout out once again, and thanks for having me.
Man, thanks for that. You know it's always love. Well, guys, Outcasts, thank you for listening to us go back and forth for so long. With that being said, we're going to go up and get out of here. Stay vigilant on the terms of games. Stay understanding what you're buying. Stay away from pre-ordering these games. But above all else, say it with me now, stay on.